I mean, you are also going to Madeira?
No.
Ah, okay. Okay. So, what can I tell you? Let me just check the. Thank you. Okay, what is interesting about the Douro? Well, port wine, because port wine used to be exported through the harbor of Douro, of Porto. That's why it's called port wine. But actually, in the city of Porto, we have no vineyards. Okay, so we have vineyards that the vineyards start more or less 120 kilometers from the seafront, from the seashore. And why is Douro special? It's because actually we have a range of mountains here that starts here. We have 3 ranges of mountains. The main one is Marão, M-A-R-A-O, Marão Mountains. The Marão Mountains cut the entry of moisture from the sea. So actually, this area, the northwest of Portugal, is Vinho Verde, which alongside with Galicia, which is in the north, just produces, it's an Atlantic climate and produce high acid, light, dry wines. Because you never have enough heat, temperature, and the climate throughout the day is quite mild. So you never have very low temperatures in winter, but you don't have a lot of high temperatures in summer. Okay, when you have all this moisture that is coming from the sea, when it hits the barrier of the mountains, which is Marão here, Alvão on the north, and Montemuro on the south, but usually most of the literature speaks about Marão mountains. I don't know about the Oxford Companion to Wine, but probably they only speak about Marão. What happens here is that the moisture gets into the mountain, goes up, and condensates, and it rains on the left side, which is Vinho Verde.
Right.
But on the right side, it gets dry. And it's literally like this. I can show you pictures in my phone that I took 2 weeks ago, in which you see the volume of clouds coming in. They just don't go through, which is very interesting. So, although this is an Atlantic climate, I would say similar to Bordeaux, but a little bit milder in temperature. The Douro is pre-continental in just one mountain range difference. So it's not Mediterranean climate, but continental, very similar to the one you find in Spain here, in the high plains of Spain, such as Ribera del Duero or Toro or Rioja. Okay, so what is pre-continental? Very, very cold winters, very hot summers, and an average rainfall. Okay. On the top of this, you have the soil, which is schist or slate. And what is also interesting, this is also here. So you have some points of granite, usually on the top of the hills only. So most of it is schist, and on the top of the hills you can find granite. That's where nowadays white wines are being produced, on the top of the mountains. Why?
For white port or just for white wine?
For white grapes. Then you will decide if you want to make white ports or white wine, white Douro. Okay. The top of the hill. Why? The top of the hills are fresher, are windier, you know, so you can balance more the acidity of the grapes. And every time you go down 100 meters, the average temperature in 1 year raises 1 degree Celsius. So you can have, in this picture, on an estate just like this, because this is only one estate from the lower part of the river until here, in 400 meters, you can have a temperature difference on these grapes to those ones that will differ 4 degrees in average in 1 year, which is enormous. for grape growing, you know.
So there's not
Absolutely.
worldwide. It's not that every 100 meters it's.
No, it's on the Douro. It's on the Douro because it's a continental climate, and Douro is a high mountainous region. So it's what's the name? Mountain viticulture. Okay.
So what type of grapes would you be growing down?
Reds, and it depends. It will depend, and then it will depend again on the orography. If it's turning south, if it's turning north, if it's turning west or east, if it gets sun in the morning or shade in the morning or sun in the afternoon. So it will depend if you want to find a thicker skin grape or one that will give you more structure or more acidity or more fruits or more color. And that is why the Douro always have a lot of grape varieties, because it will be the blends of the profiles of these grape varieties that will make the perfect port. Because you want a port to age, so you can't only look for fruit in a grape, or you can't only look for color. You have to balance fruit with color, with acidity, with longevity, with structure, in order to have a wine that will be able to age for a long time. And that is one of the reasons why we have so many grape varieties in the Douro, because we cannot make a certain standard with only one type of grape.
There aren't. Yeah, nobody makes like a single varietal. Because I hear that Touriga Nacional is the best, but you wouldn't.
I would say, even if you do, you cannot label it. You will never find a single variety port.
Okay.
That's not possible. Even if you do. But actually, even if you do, probably the wine will lack something in its aging. And the same for Douro wines. If something that it's not here, but I think you can define a great wine region in the world by the longevity of the wines. If it produces wines that are able to age. So if you don't have that on a region, usually the region is not that well known, because that doesn't show potential on the wine for tertiary aromas or wines that will evolve well. You can only find that in the Douro, I would say 90%, with wines that are blends of grape varieties and not a single grape variety. So even if you have a Touriga Nacional for table wine, for still wine, or a Tinta Flores, which is the tempered medium, of course you may have very good examples, but they are the exception and not the rule. Okay? So it's all of this, the access to water, the temperature, the freshness, the type of soil that will make port wine so special. These features, you don't have it on the. Okay. What do you need to know? What is the name of the steps with stone walls? Socalcos. What's the name of the steps without stone walls? And what's the name of the vineyard when it's planted facing the river? Vinha alto, which means high. This has more feet per plants per vineyard, per hectare. Okay. This one has less. These ones have less. These are older ones. This is the new winemaking, the new viticulture, as you have on this picture. This estate was produced, is 10 years old, more or less. It was 5 when the picture was taken. It was like 65 parcels that were.
Patamares, right?
Exactly. This is all Patamares, but here you have also Patamares. This is Douro Superior, so usually you don't find Socalcos in Douro Superior. Douro Superior is this area. Okay. Let's get back to the one thing that always appears on the Douro is divided into 3 parts. And the lower Corgo is a Douro tributary that goes here. It's, if I'm not wrong, it's here. By the colors. Okay, there is a small creek river here called Corgo, Corgo. which divides the region in the first part, which is Lower Corgo, because of the river, and Upper Corgo. And then you have the Douro Superior Douro, which means in Portuguese higher. Higher in terms of more far away.
Not superior.
Not superior in the terms of better quality, okay? The most dense planted area is the Lower Corgo because it's the oldest one.
Yeah.
Okay? The lowest densely planted area is Douro Superior. The Douro Superior is also less mountainous, although it is still quite highly mountainous as you can see on that picture. The Lower Corgo is more mountainous. And here in the Lower Corgo it rains in average 4 times more in 1 year than in the Douro Superior. So that also makes the difference regarding the sick. Yeah, it's only 100 kilometers from here to here. So if you consider that you have 4 times more water access here than here, and if you consider that you may have one company or one state that has, one company that has several states throughout the Douro, they can even blend the profile of the wines that they did in Douro Superior, more rich probably in tannins, more over-matured grapes when compared to these ones that are much milder and more elegant but less fruity or less tannic wines. Okay.
And
so here in the middle, it's the average. It's the most balanced wines, probably.
irrigation isn't allowed.
No,
right?
it isn't allowed unless you ask for a special permit or you are just growing small vineyards. It's more or less the European regulation. Doesn't have any difference. It's not allowed, but you can see irrigation because you can ask for it. Okay. You can see here in the rainfall, you see, much more darker here than here. And the temperature is exactly where the valley is. The valley or the valley of the tributaries of the region. The Corgo or probably the Tua River, the Sabor River, the Coa River, all those that are tributaries of the Douro, which are closer to the water streams, you have much more temperature. And then you have the peaks of the mountains, which is the temperature is less. How port wine is produced in terms of distribution, it's very, very important. You can have that in the exam. All the Douro is classified by letters. All the Douro vineyards are classified by letters. Okay. So you have a set of parameters. For instance, type of variety planted, type of soil, sun exposure. If the soil is too stony or less stony, you have lots of parameters, around 12. By those parameters, they have points in order to benefit or not to benefit the feature of that parcel, and from those points you get letters. So vineyards that are letter A are the best potential producing areas, and then you have letter B, C, D, E, G, E, F, G, until I, Y, I.
So until I, so it's from
I.
A to I.
Yeah, but from F you don't have access to port production anymore. Okay,
so for port production, it's from A to F. Okay, that's a question we get a lot. We wonder, is it A to I or A to F? So for port production,
what happened is that in the old days, until it would be possible to produce port until the Y, the I. But actually, as less port is being produced, the lower letters are being excluded.
Okay, so A to F for port. Fantastic.
And then every year there is a decision from a meeting from the interprofessional committee that will decide the amount of port to be produced on that year based on sales and on stocks. So on sales projection and on stocks, they will negotiate every year until the end of July what is the amount of port to be produced on that harvest in September. Okay?
Is that mainly to like control the price?
I would say that it's mainly for not to have a lot of much more stocks than needed.
Okay.
Okay, price would be more influenced by the market, and then this amount will be redistributed all by the letters. So people with letter A will get more allowance to produce port, and then letter B a little bit less, and then letter C a little bit less, D, E, F, okay, even less. But this redistribution is decided every year. It's not something that I will know for 10 years what is the amount of port, because it will depend on the total amount that I will produce on that year. Okay.
So if you're an
Let me just finish it because it's important. This allowance is called the beneficio. Actually, it comes from an old name. It's the amount of spirit that I will benefit the wine, and the benefit comes beneficio.
Okay. There
In
you go.
Portuguese would be quantidade agora com que eu vou
Beneficiar.
No, that I will put on the wine to benefit it, to make it port.
Okay.
That's where the beneficio name comes from. But the beneficio is this redistribution from the amount of the year through the letters that don't change unless you ask for it to the institute here. Okay. We're going to ask.
Yeah, so if I'm an F vineyard, what's my incentive for producing grapes for port? Would I not be better off doing either other harvests or just producing grapes for table wine?
Until you can sell a barrel of port 4 times more than a barrel of Douro, even a F letter will be beneficial.
Okay.
Because
so the F is
makes
still
sense.
superior to
Yeah,
because
more money
even
for
an F for port
it's still good.
is still more beneficial,
It's better.
better in terms
It's more
of
interesting.
price.
Okay.
Probably it will not produce top vintage ports, but it will be able to produce other not lower quality but lesser quality wines.
And do you ever label the category?
No, sometimes I don't think I'm not sure if you are allowed to put the letter of your vineyards in the back label. I don't think so. You can say it comes from the best vineyards, or all my vineyards are letter A. So just to induce the consumer that you are talking about top quality grapes. But even if you have top quality grapes, you may have a very bad year. So it doesn't mean that,
there you go.
that you would have immediately top end wine. You know.
Do they ever revise? If you're an A,
You are able to.
always an A.
Let's imagine that you replant it and you change the grape varieties. For grape varieties that are actually better rated. So you are allowed to ask for a revaluation.
Oh, so you could go from like a C to a B if you replant.
But you can also go from a B to a C,
Right.
from something that happens.
In that case, you don't ask.
yeah, it will depend.
Okay.
Because you can imagine, you can pass from B to A because you change your grape variety, but from A to B because you planted more feet per vineyard than allowed, for instance,
Right.
or less than that. So it would depend on the sum of the 12 parameters. One other thing that is important, but why when I have a letter A on and in the beneficio, and a certain amount is distributed to me, this is always a quota of wines that I can produce with my letter A. So this means that let's imagine that on a given year, I am allowed to produce 62% of port from my letter A grades. I still have 38% to produce other wines, which would be still wines. So there is always the option, or there is always top quality grapes for still wines, because it's always a quota that is distributed. You don't get to all letter A is fed up and then you pass to letter B. It's not a stream, you know. It's not there is a name in English that I don't remember. It's not something that as soon as you fill up letter A, it goes to letter B, then fill up letter B.
Yeah.
No, it's always a quota that is distributed by the letters, which means that you always have top quality grapes for still wines.
Yeah.
And would it make a difference if you had a really large plot of A-rated quality, would it make a difference if you sold half of that, or would it mean that your allowance gets cut in half as well? So say, your quota is this, the next vineyard quota is this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you kind of get the quota each, or is it actually as a whole, you're only going to get 10% rather than 20% you would have got had you owned the whole vineyard?
If I understand your question, you have the quota per vineyard.
So you could sell half of it, and then your
You can keep
person
it.
that buys it can then get more.
You have to sell
Yeah.
your grapes with the quota. You
Okay.
cannot sell the grapes and keep the quota,
No, yeah,
Yeah.
but you sell the quota to somebody else.
Yeah, with the grapes.
Yeah.
You have to do that. Otherwise, the other guy will have grapes without quota.
Oh, so
It's
there you
something
go.
mathematical. You can make movements inside the region, but I cannot have grapes without the quota. Otherwise, I would not be allowed to. If I buy you the grapes without the quota, I would be filling up my own quota with your
Exactly.
grapes, so I have
There you
less.
go.
1 year I have
less volume.
20% quota, and I
We're
sell
only
half of
speaking
it,
about
and
1
they
year.
only get 10%.
Yeah.
So okay, so it's not that that each
Yeah,
one gets 20%.
let's imagine I'm an A, you're an F. You sell me your 20%, you have to sell me the quota, plus the grapes. I have to take everything,
Yeah.
from what I understood.
Exactly.
You can't take just the quote. I can't take your quote and use my grapes.
You cannot.
I
sell
have
the
to use your
quotas.
grapes. I have to use your
It's
grapes.
not allowed. It's forbidden. It's a crime. You have to sell everything. So you can have movements. You can sell grapes with quota. You can sell wines with quota, but you cannot sell them separately. If you don't use them, you don't use them. Imagine that
Yeah.
in 1 year you don't have enough. The year was very bad. We had very difficult conditions this year in 2018. And probably there were people that didn't fill up their quotas because they didn't have enough grapes. It happens. You cannot do it. In terms of percentage, okay? This is important because usually it appears in the exams, the 45-1 exams, the beneficio system. So beneficio is an authorization to production related to the grade of your vineyards. One estate may have vineyards with different letters, okay? Because here you may have A's, and here you may only have D's. Letter D. It will depend. It's not one estate, one letter, okay? And of course, that probably here you will have letter A's, and here you will have letter D's or E's or F's, okay? Os patamares viram lá alto. Schist with granites, some granite localized. The grape varieties, you know them?
The main ones.
I know the names.
Which are the
I
names?
don't Trigo Nacional, Tintoris, which is Tempranillo.
Franca Barroca. Cow means dog.
Yeah.
These are the main five.
That is like the dog grape, isn't it? Because it's the same deal.
It's not the same.
But it's called like a stanker cow, like dog.
Esganacão.
Yeah.
Esganacão is cercial.
Esganacão is cercial, yeah.
Yeah.
The cercial in Madeira is esganacão in the Douro or in the continent.
Yeah.
Okay. And listrão.
No.
Listrão,
We
which
don't.
is, you don't.
I don't think we don't get to that point.
Yeah.
No.
Listrão is one of not the top 5 Madeira grapes, but like the 7th or 6th.
Okay.
That
we
exists
only
in
do
Madeira.
Formier grapes.
Listrão, which is Palomino.
Oh, which is a Palomino. Oh,
There is Palomino in Madeira.
see? I knew Sherry needed some good things.
Listrão. Okay. This is sherry.
That was very useful.
So, yeah, if they have here these 5, actually they have only 4. What's missing? História Nacional. Yeah. You have to know the profile of the grape varieties of these 5. There are much more, of course.
Yeah.
Nowadays, This top 5 existed because there was a scientific study in the early 80s that defined these 5 as the top 5 grape varieties. As we developed for Douro production, most of the winemakers and viticultures immediately understood that having only 5 grape varieties would be very reductive. So they continued to plant or replant not only old vineyards, but other grape varieties that don't appear here but exists.
And are there rules on
Tinta
what?
Amarela, Tinta Francisca, Rufete. Well, actually the Douro has allowed 110 grape varieties, more or less, which would be 85 red and 25 white. There is also one thing here which is interesting. On the white grape varieties, you have Gouveia, Malvasia, Fina, and Viuzinho. On Douro wines, one of the most renowned grapes is Rabigato, but for still wines. Rabigato. And there is also Muscat in Douro, Muscat Petit Grain, the same as Bagnol. So we also have Muscat of the Douro. So if it appears as a white grape variety, it's normal. Okay. Let's taste, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very interesting.